What's going on, guys? We're going to recap Regional 2 for the European RLCS X season. And what a day it was. Finally, we're starting to get some surprises happen in Europe. I thought it was honestly very strange that we haven't gotten these surprises in, like, pretty much any of these regionals. We had maybe some runs, like maybe the endpoint run or something like that, where it's like, okay, it's a little bit of a surprise, but that's only because BDS and Vitality would be on the same side of the bracket, and so on and so forth. So, finally, we get to see some upsets. It was what we expected in Europe, because honestly, we always, like a lot of people say, the depth of Europe is insane, and anyone can win at any given time, up until recently, where it's been the Dignitas Vitality, and now moving on to Vitality BDS. It was a fun ride. Let's go over exactly what happened. Sorry I didn't do any of the recap videos throughout the week. Babies were sick and all that stuff, so it was a little bit harder to get things done. But let's go through it. The biggest winners and losers, obviously, Top Blokes. We'll start with them, and then we'll work our way down. Top Blokes, what a run from them. Taking down BDS. Game 7, overtime. Fantastic from them. That is good to see. They also beat Team Queso on their way to then playing Team Queso again. Again, Game 7, overtime. Absolutely insane. There were so many comebacks, and I'm not sure if it was clock management issues or just, like, how good these guys are. It's probably a mixture of both. That's what it normally is. But, man, oh, man, what a day. Team Queso making the run of their lives. So they go down. First off, on day 3, they make that huge run by taking down Vitality. Like, all right, sure, you were the 8th seed, or maybe number 7, I think it was, actually. Or number 6, I think, because Vitality's the 3rd seed. Blokes were the number 2 seed because of the grid. So number 6 seed, I guess they were number 7, maybe. I don't know, somewhere around there. You go on to play, what, the 23rd seed because of an upset, so you get an easy win there. So everyone's thinking, all right, you're going to run into Vitality. It's not going to matter when you go to the quarterfinals. But they 3-0 sweep them. So that's a great result there. 2 overtimes once again. Queso was winning a lot of overtimes throughout this. Then they go on to play the Blokes. They get taken down there. This time, Blokes getting those overtime wins. But then they just bounce back. They play Redemption, and maybe people are like, all right, Redemption's good, but, it's Redemption, right? It's not one of those big names yet. So, I'm not sure if this match matters much. But they win that in overtime in Game 6. Then they go on, and you play the Giants, who pretty much everyone would put in that top 4 for Europe. Maybe they've been slipping up a little bit here or there. But they showed up once again here by taking down Galaxy Racer 4-0. So, basically, once they did that, all right, you're back to top 4 of Vodafone Giants. And in Queso, what do? Completely shut them down. Don't let Vodafone Giants do literally anything. So a 4-0 win there. It's like, all right, now you're the real deal. But you got up against BDS. It's not going to matter, right? BDS, they weren't even supposed to lose up here, but they come down here, and Queso just does it again. So this series more high scoring than the other one with Vodafone Giants, but just shows that they can do it either way. A lot of offense, just a lot of fast play. Like I saw, I think it was the Vodafone Giants series where the boost consumption by both teams was roughly the same, but about a Team Queso, the speed of their players, the average speed was like 5 to 10% higher on all of them. It just shows that they're continuing their momentum while using their boost, and they're just getting around the field that much faster. And 5 to 10% doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're trying to win those 50-50s going for balls, it matters a ton. So Team Queso doing a great job there. Team Queso takes down BDS, the biggest surprise of this entire tournament. So they move on to the grand finals, and they almost take it down against Top Blokes. It was a very, very tight series. Back and forth we go. It was nuts. So I'm not even going to have highlights in this because I didn't have time to do all that stuff. But go ahead and go back and just watch that series. It was a treat. Top Blokes BDS, also a treat. I would go watch Top Blokes BDS, then BDS Queso, and then Top Blokes Queso. That's really all you need from here. Excuse me. All right, we're back. Those are the things you probably need the most there to watch. But it was fun to see a new team kind of rise out of that fold. Because a lot of people at Team Queso was like, all right, maybe they're the 8th best, but realistically, we're looking at like they're somewhere in the top 12. We don't think they'll be consistent for a while, stuff like that. But Team Queso, they show up. All 3 players too, playing amazing throughout. So good on them. But then we look down the line here, and I think there was a lot of surprises. So day 1 and day 2, obviously we talked about this. Really, no surprises on day 1. There was 2 lower bracket seeds that won, or lower seeds that won their matches. And we're like, okay, it looks like Europe has kind of fallen into a fold of like, we know who is good and who is not. But then we go down to the lower bracket. And here's where things get crazy because obviously we play these 2 rounds and we see who survives out of it. And the 2 teams that got upset on day 1, the only 2, Dignitas and Team Singularity, both made it here. Team Singularity then goes on to play Galaxy Racer, which was an insane ending. Go watch that in Game 5. I won't spoil it too much. Obviously, Galaxy Racer wins, but just go watch that. But Team Singularity looked good, so they bounced back from their performance earlier. Dignitas, the same thing. That is a good sign for both those teams moving forward. Now, for Dignitas, that keeps them in the running for the World Championship. Team Singularity, they're probably not making a World Championship run, but they can build on this unless they have an insane major, which is really what it's going to come down to, is what happens at this major to determine, are you still alive for a top 6 spot for a World Championship? If, who knows if there even is a World Championship? Who knows what happens? But that is what people are playing for throughout this. So, Team Singularity did pretty well. They probably should have beat Galaxy Racer, and then who knows what happens there. Team Liquid even bouncing back. They were a lower seed up here, and they also moved on. They lost to Solary, and then they come down here, and they also moved on. So Team Liquid finally showing up when they should. So Team Liquid, who knows? Maybe by the end of this whole thing, they might be back in that top 12 conversation. Like, obviously, because of their points, probably not playing for a World Championship bid at this point. But again, who knows? If they can make the major, which however many teams that is, and if they can do well at the major, then they might be right back into the things. So Dignitas as well. And then Redemption. Finally, they made up. Well, not really finally, but Regional 1, we thought they should be where they were in Regional 2. And they finally do it in Regional 2. And on top of that, they even go even further. They take down Guild, which is a great result. Take down Dignitas, who took down Oxygen. So pretty good results there. So the teams coming from these winners' quarters, normally there's only 1 out of 4, at least for the first regional, that will get upset when they go down to this lower round 3. But this time, 2 of them, Dignitas and Redemption, both do it. Redemption is the first European team to have to play on day 2 to survive until day 4, so that's a good sign for them. So they moved on to Team Queso and then ran into, Team Queso. But they look good. Cash looked amazing. Like, I think Cash looked great throughout. And we kind of hype up Cash throughout, but it's not like we just hype him up for no reason. He was carrying that squad. He was doing a lot of plays on his own to keep them in that series versus Queso. So Redemption, good story from them. Again, probably not playing for Worlds, but it's good to get that money. Who knows? If you make the major, do well there. You never know. If you have a Team Queso run at the major, that's 600 points. You never know. You never know what can happen. So, Vitality, obviously, that this is a bad result. People are going insane when I see on Reddit mostly, where they're just like, well, this is it. It's over. Just disband the team. Now, obviously, it's not everyone on Reddit. It's only some people. But it's like, guys, these guys were what, like 31-2 versus all teams in Europe outside of BDS? They're fine. They don't have to worry about anything. Who knows? Maybe they're not playing as much. Maybe they need to crack down. But sometimes you need a bad result like this to then have that wake-up call. I'm like, all right, we need to get back on the horse. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter for Vitality. Sure, prize money is always nice, but they're going to make the World Championship. They're still number 2 in points. It really doesn't matter all that much. It's more about the wake-up call of like, guys, come on, we need to pick this up. We need to stay in that number 2 spot at the very least so we can have a good bid when we get to a World Championship or whatever. So, for Vitality, sure, it's a bad result, but it's not the end of the world. Like, people saying, like, oh, my God, they need to disband. Like, guys, they're still the second-best team in Europe. It's not a question. Maybe, like, if you want to be cute and put Top Blokes above them, sure, go ahead. Because of this one regional. That's fine. But they're still number 3, and it's not even close. So, the only other, like, big losers here, for the most part, is Endpoint. Endpoint, you could say, like, I saw some people, like, trying to complain about, well, they got unlucky seeding, yada, yada, and all of that. So I think a lot of people try and compare them, Endpoint to the Wolves in Regional 1, where Endpoint had to play in Oxygen that was too lowly seeded, even though we saw them for a whole split and they didn't do anything. So I think they were pretty properly seeded there. But they lose to them, then they lose to a Galaxy Racer because Galaxy Racer got upset by a team like Queso. Which obviously Queso's hot now, whatever. And Oxygen's playing well too. And they're like, well, the Wolves didn't have to play anyone that good to get where they got to. It's like, they beat Dignitas. Like, And who did Endpoint lose to in this tournament? They lost to Dignitas. So I don't see how that is an issue. Like, sure, you could say Dignitas look better in Regional 2 than Regional 1, but that's every bracket, right? At the end of the day, that's every single bracket of like, well, you ran into a hot team. It's going to happen. Like, I think the one thing I always get annoyed about is like people going like, they're super complainy about this stuff. And it's like, one, there is 3 splits of action. There is 3 tournaments, at least, without the major. 3 tournaments in each split for you to make do or to make good about what your team can do. And then if you make the major, obviously, whatever. And sure, if they have 2 bad results in a row, they might not make the major at this point. And like, okay, so you lose out on, a good chunk of that 33% of the season. Well, if you're good enough anyway, then you would make it up on the other 2 sides, right? Fall split and spring split. So we'll see what happens. But I think people who are like, oh man, this format, it really makes it so like if you just get a bad bracket, it's all over. And like, there's 9 events, there's 12 events, whatever you want to call it. And also it's like, have you watched any other sport where it's like they play for a year and then if they get a bad bracket, well, guess what? That's it. It's over. Like there's no more to it. They wait 4 years for the Olympics. They accidentally trip on their skates because someone else knocks them out. It's over. It's life. Just get over it. At the end of the day, just win. As Jorby was saying, just win. No matter the format, no matter what, we're still playing best of 5s, right? So it's you just have to win. So Endpoint, they fall to Vitality. Again, Vitality didn't look all that great throughout this tournament. And then they fall to Dignitas. That's definitely a big loss for them to come in last place. Obviously, a bad beat on their bracket because Dignitas, they lost to Train Hard and all that stuff. But at the same time, Train Hard, they took out Dignitas, then lost to the Giants, and then lost to Ricks. And Train Hard, I could see having that same argument of like, well, we beat Dignitas. Why aren't we higher? Stuff like that. Just the way of life. So at point, definitely bad for them. We're going to go over to the points now. Same with probably Fadeaway because they lost to Team Liquid to come in last as well after almost taking down BDS. So Fadeaway, pretty bad result there. Those are the 2 main losers for the weekend. But we'll go over to the rankings here really quick. So let's look at where everyone is right now. So Endpoint is now in 6th in that last spot for the World Championship. They have not had a good run here. Only 110 points for the entirety of the winter split. They got a ton because of that fall major and because of fall regional 3. They had like 2 really good tournaments. But now they've kind of they've fallen back down, which like I think a lot of people could have guessed because based on what Endpoint did in fall regional 3 and the fall major, both times they finished 3-2 in the Swiss portion and then they get like an upset win, right? So now you can't have that many lives. So if Endpoint can't be consistent versus lower end teams, then this might happen. So it's not too surprising here, I would say. Galaxy Racer, they pick it up a little bit, so now they have 260 points for the winter. So they move up to 5th, so they move up a spot. Team Queso got a bunch of points, 460 now for the split, so that is great for them. They have moved up past Guild. And there's a big race right here. Like Endpoint's at 930. Team Queso at 900, Guild at 880. So this is a very tight race. And then there's still teams like Dig and Oxygen who are starting to pick up the pace. Teams that have beat Team Endpoint here. So pretty recently. So those teams are starting to pick it up. Who knows with Solary? Sure, 2 not great results. Only 140 points, but you never know. I think there is a chance that they could have a pop-off bracket and make it to a day 3. You never know. And then probably Fadeaway is that big loser of like they had a chance. They almost took down BDS. They would have got a ton more points because of that. Instead, they're down here in 12th now. And Triple Trouble as well. 2 last place finishes. Not looking good for them. So they're down at 540. And after that, it's going to be very, very difficult for these teams to catch up. We got Team Singularity at 330. So 600 points behind. So that is that major, right? If you can get that 600 point major by coming like top 2, then maybe that's probably their last chance to catch up, unless like something insane happens in the spring split where they go off. But that's very, very unlikely because even by then the point difference might be too big. So it's really going to come down to this winter major when that happens for teams like Team Liquid or pretty much anyone down here. Team Singularity, Team Liquid, Train Hard, Ricks, so on and so forth. We have Wolves and Redemption and Denied and YouTube Special, like all these teams down here. If they can make a good run, if they make a winter major, Then we'll see. But before that, you can basically kind of count them out. Now, Triple Trouble, they're still in the mix. They're still 400 points behind, but they're still in the mix. They obviously need to start getting some of these results back. And if they don't make that major, depending on how many teams make it, then they're in deep trouble as well. So, that is where we stand in Europe right now. We're about to go on a holiday break for Europe. I think we don't start up again until January 10th or so, something like that. So, a pretty long break here, about a month. January 9th, I believe, would be the next time we see them. I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong there, but I'm pretty sure. There is 2 grids before it, and I urge you guys to not go too crazy about these 2 grids. Now, these grids will matter for their seed for Regional 3. So it is important, but I could see a lot of the players not caring too much because it's during the holiday break. I could see probably the grid coming up now. Like, it is only one day after, so it's happening Tuesday and Wednesday, which I think we might actually have our grid bracket. So let's go check that out real quick. But that one, maybe people will care a little bit more, but it's going to be hard because it's holiday break now for them. So I think a lot of people are going to begin to take their breaks, maybe go home and see family and all that. Hopefully everyone's safe and all that, so we don't spread more. But here's our groups for the grid that is starting on Tuesday. So this is starting tomorrow. Well, actually, by the time this video comes out, it'll start today. So Giants, Redemption, Team Singularity, and Top Blokes. That's a pretty good group. 2 top 4 teams in Giants and Top Blokes. And Redemption and Team Singularity both had really good runs. Group of Death, maybe already. Group B, we got Dignitas, Fadeaway, Guild, and Vitality. 4 teams, like, kind of all right in the same spot right now. Maybe, like one place from Regional 2 that kind of moves them around a bit. So that might be a group that is maybe the group of life a little bit, which is weird to say with Vitality and Guild, how they've been doing so well. So if they turn back around, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. And we got Endpoint, Oxygen, Rick's GG, and Triple Trouble. This is definitely the group of life. I apologize. Like, Endpoint has not looked that good. Oxygen's on the rise, but it's not like peak Oxygen yet. Rick's, it's a middle of the road team, and Triple Trouble, middle of the road team right now. So Oxygen should win that group, and like, I think for this group, it's actually a lot better for Endpoint to kind of show that they still are a top team. I saw Virtuoso on Twitter. He's like, I deleted every other game off my computer. It is time to grind. So during this holiday break, he expects to grind a lot. He wants to get back in form. So Endpoint, I think that is a group that if you want to be taken as like a top team again, and also their seed right now is going to be terrible for Regional 3. They can make that up with grid performances. So for Endpoint, very important right now. And then Group G, we got Galaxy Racer, Team BDS, Team Liquid, and Wolves. And I'd say, Galaxy Racer and BDS lead that group. But Liquid and Wolves have not been terrible. So it's not a bad group either. But definitely Group A is that group of death. And again, it's kind of sad that we don't get to see Team Queso in here because they bombed out of the grid playoffs when it came down to it. So those are your groups that'll start on Tuesday. So basically, they have one then. I think they have one January 3rd or whatever date that is. I believe is the next time. Yeah, January. Yeah, 2 and 3 of January. So we'll have 2 grids, and then we'll have the next regional. But again, it's holiday break, so it's going to be very interesting to see what teams are like, let's play for serious, or maybe some teams are just like, we don't really care because of this holiday break. Now, again, for seeding purposes, it is your winter points plus your grid winter points will determine your seed. If you are not in the grid, then you are protected in whatever spot you are in, but you lose every tiebreaker. So if you're tied with other teams, you would lose every single tiebreaker and fall to the last spot in that thing, basically. So Team Queso, I believe, is 3rd right now in points, so they're just going to be 3rd when it goes into the next regional for their seed. They cannot move, but people can move around them. So right now that would be BDS and Blokes are above them, and that'll probably be the same. Like, maybe those two will pass one another, and then below that is some more teams. So I'll show that real quick before we end here. Sorry. Let's go back to rankings. So here's where the seeding is roughly. Now, again, I'm not looking at grid right now, so it's a little bit harder. I was confused this here. So grid rankings, if it ended right now, Team Queso is 3rd, so they are going to get the 3rd seed no matter what. Giants right behind them. Excuse me. BDS, Blokes, Giants, and Vitality. They're going to be the next 4 likely, but Galaxy Racer had a good grid. So if they have another grid like 2 and 3 are pretty good, then maybe they catch up to like a Vitality or something like that, but we'll see. Oxygen will probably stay down there too. So here's your rough seeding ranks right now, but it really comes down to how this grid works out. Now, the next non-grid team is Team Queso, and then it's, if I remember correctly, be Team Denied at 13. So they're tied with Solary and Team Liquid, so they would fall down to 15th. So after that, then so they'd be locked in there, and then there'll be seeds around them as well. So not a lot of non-grid teams up here. So we'll see how these seeds play out based on their grid performances. But that's how it'll be seeded for the last regional before the majors. However that is going to be, I guess. I don't know. Who knows? Do I know? I have no idea. So thank you for watching. Enjoy your holiday break. Watch North America this weekend. Tuesday, Wednesday is European Grid. Then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday is North America. And that'll be the last tournament for Rlcs X purposes until the holiday break is over. So enjoy the holidays. If you're not an NA fan, I don't blame you. Europe's the better region. But definitely check us out on the desk. It'll be a lot of fun. So thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye-bye.